Welcome back to Xbox Corner, my name is Alex, and alongside Luke today we'll be bringing you our personal 10 favourite first-person shooters available on Game Pass right now. Now before we do get into this then, I do want to point out this is not ranked in any way, this isn't just AAA either, there's a fair few small gems as well. So with that luck, hit that like button and subscribe for reviews, deals, Game Pass breakdowns, visual comparisons and lists just like this weekly, and let's get started.
So we're going to be kicking things off with one of the lesser known titles on this list with Deep Rock Galactic, and this is a 1 to 4 player co-op game which sees you playing as a bunch of space-faring dwarves out to make a living by mining and selling valuable resources which just so happen to be located within the most hostile cave systems in the galaxy. Now gameplay in Deep Rock Galactic has a similar feel to that of Left 4 Dead or Warhammer Vermintide 2, so if you enjoy games which feature those kind of wave-based combat encounters, then you'll likely have fun with this one, though unlike these games, it doesn't have a structured campaign as such, and instead each game's cave systems are procedurally generated, as are each mission's objectives and the insect-like enemies that you'll encounter. Now there are 4 specialist classes to pick from in the game, each of which fulfill different roles in a team and can be modified and upgraded, allowing for a variety of builds. And when it comes to forming a team, I actually had no issues finding players to group with online, and I had an absolute blast playing this one, though I did get my ass handed to me a little and ended up being carried through some of the harder missions by my higher level teammates. One final feature I want to mention which I thought was particularly cool is the fact that the cave system's environments are also fully destructible, allowing you to proceed towards the objective in whichever way you see fit, and you can even use this to your tactical advantage to carve out fortifications in preparation for the alien swarms that besiege you. While Deep Rock Galactic may not be the highest profile game on our list, in my opinion it's definitely earned its spot.
Rainbow Six Siege then has gone from strength to strength. While I personally suck at this game, I do have somewhat an addiction to watching it over on Twitch. The depth to its systems, the strategic gunplay, the near instant kills. It's a game that's not designed for run and gun entertainment, but rather an experience that rewards commitment. It's evolved a lot as well. I was there back when it launched originally, and now the game's near nothing like that initial release. This is just the base game however, and there's a ton of content now given the fact this game originally released back in 2015. That DLC revolves around operators, and there's going to be 5 years worth to pick up, or 38 in total. That's basically playable characters, each with their own unique weapons and gadgets. You can also unlock these operators by grinding out in-game currency, or most recently, getting hold of the Battle Pass. There's a learning curve for sure with this one, but it has some built-in tutorials thanks to what's called situations. Alongside that then, expect a variety of modes that includes everything from team-based play to solo as well.
So up next we have Superhot Mind Control Delete, and this is actually the 3rd game in the Superhot series, a series that I fell in love with after about 5 minutes into the first Superhot game, and if you've never actually played any of these games, then the concept is as ingenious as it is simple. In each of the game's levels, the objective is to eliminate all of the bad guys in whatever way you can, be that through punching in the faces with your bare knuckles, chopping them in half with samurai swords, or unloading a mag into them, and you then get to watch as the bodies shatter into 1,000 satisfying pieces. What makes Superhot so unique though is that time in the game only moves when you do, and so in a way the game kind of has a bit of a puzzle-like feel to it as you work out exactly how you're going to deal with the mounting number of enemies that it throws at you. And while the first game in the series was pretty linear, this 3rd entry really tries to expand on the formula by giving you a network of nodes to work through in whatever order you see fit. In addition to this, you can also unlock hacks as they're known in game, which grant you a bunch of different special abilities, from allowing you to start each level with a samurai sword to releasing a blast of deadly shurikens whenever you take damage, and these prove especially valuable when going up against some of the game's harder enemies. All of these things though really just add up to provide much more variety to gameplay when compared with the previous titles, and all in all, Superhot is a really unique FPS puzzle hybrid, and I highly recommend giving it a go if you haven't yet done so.
Doom Eternal then is the follow-up to Doom 2016. Here we return as the Slayer to save the world. This time Earth has been overrun by demonic forces and you are the one-man army out to stop them. It continues sometime after the 2016 release, but I really enjoyed the story and the Earth setting. It allowed for some real nice but recognisable set pieces. Most recently then in update 6.66, we saw the addition of an arcade mode that is Horde mode, and the online multiplayer got an upgrade as well in Battle Mode 2.0. This multiplayer, it's a 2v1 mode where you have 2 player controlled demons versus 1 player controlled Slayer. It's surprisingly good fun, but I will say it didn't hook me personally for all that long. From the enemy design to the selection of weapons though, this is peak Doom in my eyes. Topping off Eternal then, a killer soundtrack. It's the usual heavy metal affair, but few games achieve this level of incredible, even if it was surrounded with controversy at launch, with a back and forth between the developers and the composer. It was something to do with not having enough time according to the composer, but the devs, they said deadlines were actually missed, so really, who knows what the truth is.
So Titanfall 2 is our next pick for this list, and while it's now over 7 years old, the game's epic single player campaign still holds up to this day, and its multiplayer mode offers one of the most unique FPS multiplayer experiences on the market. Now, the first Titanfall game didn't actually have a story mode and was almost entirely multiplayer focused, but with this its sequel, Respawn Entertainment brought lore to the world, and for me its single player campaign is the epitome of short but sweet. Lasting around 5 hours at most, its story follows rookie pilot Jack Cooper and his charismatic Titan, BT-7274, as the duo embark on a mission that they were never meant to be involved with, and while some critics have commented on its plot somewhat lacking in originality, I personally really enjoyed it. I also felt that its gameplay more than made up for any of these shortcomings, with a great balance between parkour-fueled on-foot combat and tactical mech-on-mech action, and I particularly enjoyed the game's time travel mechanics. Now, the game's multiplayer has recently been given a new lease of life on PC, with players able to create their own custom servers, and from what I've seen, the Xbox player base is still very much alive and well, and while I myself have never actually played the game online, it does get a lot of praise from its loyal fan base, and from my experience with the first game, it really does have some unique gameplay to offer, and the community appears to be kept active with a weekly offering of Game Pass quests.
Crysis Trilogy then I'm bundling together. The first entry, it was revolutionary for shooters. It had a combination of a small open world, and then visually it still held high as an example of what powerful is. It even spawned the saying, but can it run Crysis? I didn't want to choose just one here because I think as a package its continued story is strong and they're free with Game Pass, so why not check them all out. The first throws you into a smaller chain of islands. It's kind of business as usual for this squad, or at least that's the case, until aliens appear. The second, it throws you into the streets of what is a destroyed New York. It's much more linear in design, but I enjoyed the plot points. Finally, the third, you're out for revenge against the alien leader. The third, it found a nice middle ground between the linear of the second for some great set pieces, but then also it had a dash of open world from the first. All are good though. The original will always be my favourite personally, followed closely by the third. That's thanks to a bow and arrow that becomes a weapon of choice, but I think you'll find a lot to like here. The highlight though will always be the nano suit. It gives you superhuman strength, armour, the ability to jump higher than should be physically possible, and then even the option to go invisible. It's a classic in the world of first-person shooters.
So what first-person shooter list would be complete without mentioning at least one of the Battlefield games? And for us it has to be Battlefield 1, which despite seeing a fall of active players in its multiplayer community, thanks to the recent release of Battlefield 2042, remains a very solid pick, whether you're looking for some multiplayer action or a single-player campaign to get stuck into. Now, the campaign in this one follows 6 different storylines, all taking place at different points in time during World War I, and each has you playing as a member member of the Allied forces as they fight or defend against the Germans. Like previous games, of course you can expect plenty of action with this one, but it also attempts to be respectful to the source material, highlighting the impact that the war had on people fighting in very different locations, but all for the same cause. Now of course, multiplayer has always been at the forefront of the Battlefield series, and while some may prefer the modern day setting of Battlefield 4 or the near future in Battlefield 2042, I've always been into my First and Second World War shooters, and Battlefield 1 does a really good job of it. That's not to say it isn't without its usual faults, mainly revolving around being stuck with random teammates who don't communicate and overpowered tanks which no one seems to want to destroy, but overall it offers a solid multiplayer experience complete with all the classic game modes such as Conquest, Domination and Rush, as well as a few Battlefield 1 specific modes.
Quake then, it's a classic, but first let's appreciate that the soundtrack it came from 9 Inch Nails and it remained intact for this remaster. It's the trademark industrial goodness, and it's easily one of my top video game soundtracks of all time. In my eyes, Trent Reznor and co, they are absolute gods. It's a soundtrack that just defined what music can do for a game and how it can elevate the action, the intensity, just all of it. That said though, the game is incredible as well. Fortunately, you are Ranger, a warrior armed to the teeth, out battling against corrupted knights, ogres and all sorts of creatures across 4 dimensions. It's fantasy themed, but still has a balance of out there designs and then more grounded, relatable locations. This remaster then, it packs both the original DLC packs and a new one called Dimension of the Machine. Throw in then Horde mode, online and local competitive multiplayer and co-op, and this is how you do a remaster the right way. It even has fan-made mods packed in, cross-play and the option to jump between the original release or this new enhanced edition. While it shows its age then as well, I still think it looks great and stands up to this day. Again, as well, make sure you listen to the soundtrack, it is epic stuff.
Up next we have Shadow Warrior 2, and like Quake, this series first released way back in the mid-90s, but this one is a sequel to 2013's reboot, and it once more sees us playing as modern day ninja Lo Wang as our sarcastic anti-hero embarks on a mission to save the world from yet another demon invasion. This one though takes everything great about the series, including its fast-paced combat and infamous offbeat humour, and dials them up a notch, introducing non-linear level designs, optional side quests, and a hub area where you can purchase and upgrade a ton of different weapons and abilities. Despite these new additions though, the game still manages to retain the essence of its retro roots, and much like the recent Doom games, the developers have put some real effort into making the game's combat feel fluid and enjoyable, giving the player plenty of options on how to approach an encounter and take down enemies, and Lo Wang's witty quips and remarks still offer plenty of laughs, despite them often being juvenile in nature. In all, Shadow Warrior 2 has plenty to offer, especially if you enjoyed the first game and are looking for more run and gun action, or are just looking for something to tide you over until the next Doom game releases.
We're closing out then with Halo Infinite, one of the biggest adds to Game Pass in 2021, and fans for the most part I'd say they've been impressed. It's the 6th mainline entry and the story, it's decent. I don't want to say too much about it because there may be those working their way up to this entry, but fan favourite characters, they indeed return. It's just the tried and tested Halo formula, honestly. Solid gunplay, somewhat floaty controls, but that's kind of just part of Halo now. And then yeah, a ton of weapons and vehicles to explore in. Given the initial reveal as well and how weak it was graphically, I'm happy with what they've delivered. I think the real draw here though is going to be multiplayer, and that has not disappointed. I jumped in day one, I've sunk a fair few hours in now at this point. It has everything from large scale battles to small 4v4. What surprised me though, it's the 4v4 that really got me hooked. Modes then include everything from deathmatch to capture the flag to zone capture to oddball, a mode where you need to hold onto a flaming skull. Issues with this one that are commonly called out though, and I want to point them out here: the lack of co-op support for the campaign, that's due in an update around May 2022. And then the XP system in multiplayer has been pretty poor so far, with 50 XP per match. They've reworked it recently, now you get boosters for the first 6 games a day, but I know performance based is also on the way soon. Hopefully though, sooner rather than later. And that's 10 first-person shooters worth checking out right now on Game Pass. One noticeable omission is Back 4 Blood. Me and Luke, we had some fun with this one. I was a fan personally, but the opinions they've been a little bit mixed, calling it out for being repetitive, with dull enemy design that have hitbox issues. Honestly, I thought it was intense, but I will say, playing with randoms it can be a little bit weak until you find a good squad. That said though, let us know your favourites in the comments down below. What should we be checking out next? And what will you be checking out from today's list? Without any luck, hit subscribe, join us here on Xbox Corner for reviews, deals, Game Pass breakdowns, graphical comparisons and lists just like this one weekly. And we'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.